Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and we'd like to call the meeting of the Rutherford County Risk Management Committee to order. And I hope you've had an opportunity to review the minutes. Do we have a motion considering their approval? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Nipper, did anyone have any corrections or additions? If not, all of you in favor of that, then please say aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, that's good. All right, we will start a series of reports here. Ms. Street will give us a report about the financials.
Okay, if you go to your Fund 264 report, we'll start there.
And before you start, Ms. Street, I forgot what I was supposed to do here first off. I see that young lady sitting here, Ms. Deborah Kennedy, is our new appointment to this particular board, and we're happy to have her with us. She works with a company called SourceMark, and they provide all kinds of breathing tubes and apparatus. Is that pretty close? Airway products. So she's well versed in those kinds of medical needs, et cetera, so we think she'll be a nice addition to this. Okay, Mrs. Street, please.
Okay, so we'll begin with Fund 264. Reviewing the month of August, you'll see that our expenses came in at $5,032,922, and our revenue came in at $1,602,027. Again, we would like to point out that we will start collecting premiums from the Board of Ed in the month of September, and that will drastically affect our revenue versus expenses line that you'll see in the next report. The variance between the two numbers is $3,430,895. On page 2 of the report, you'll see the calendar period year-to-date of revenue versus expenses. For the current year, you'll see $38,902,407 compared to $41,891,335 in revenue. Expenses for prior year to date are $45,415,792 compared to current of $44,164,387. For fiscal year running from July 1st through June 30th, you'll see that prior period of revenue was $3,114,019 compared to current fiscal year to date of $2,987,693, with expenses coming in on prior year of $12,546,670, current at $11,038,268.
So the fiscal year is that just 1 month there this time?
Well, it would be representative of July and August.
2 months, okay.
Yes, sir. So the last page provides you with calendar year revenue versus expense comparison for both 16 and 17, as well as fiscal year for 16 and 17, and it provides you what the current calendar year per employee per month expenses are, which is coming in at $966.80. If you'll look at the calendar year revenue versus expenses comparison, you'll see that currently there is a deficiency of $2,273,051, which we'll expect to see that change once we begin to receive the revenue from the Board of Ed in September. For the fiscal year, you'll look and see that the 2 months have accumulated to a deficit of $8,050,575. Again, we don't typically worry this early in the year because of how the payroll system works and that we're coming off the summer months. We know that traditionally those are higher claim months. And as we were talking about with Ms. Kennedy and her line of work, they're in their busy season right now because people have met deductibles and they're starting to try to get services done by the end of the calendar year. So we will begin to see that again, particularly as the schools start to take their fall break, Thanksgiving break, and the winter break. We'll see higher claims during those periods as well.
Okay, who has any questions for Ms. Street regarding this financial report? Okay, if I don't see anyone wishing to speak.
So we can go to 266 now?
Let's move on to the next one. We weren't quite through with her report.
So So moving on to Fund 266, which is the on-the-job injury fund performance. It also includes open worker comp claims that we have that have lifetime medical on them. For the month of August year-to-date, we're at $280,307 compared to prior year-to-date of $77,449. The difference in those two numbers represents one claim where there's significant on-the-job injury expenses, and there have been measures put in place as precautions to prevent any type of injury like that happening again to the best of our ability. That particular injury did involve one of our citizens as well, and so we have tried to limit exposure in that regard to how we can control things better in our environment to prevent those type of injuries going forward. So now I'm done, Mayor.
Okay, any questions regarding that? Now, you said OJI, but this is workers' comp, is that correct?
It's workers' comp and OJI combined, so it represents
Combine
both.
those actually together.
Yes, sir. It gives both of what the claims have paid over the last month and then year-to-date. And then Mr. Good provides an actual breakdown of what the claims look like for the month.
Workers' comp claims, we're down to almost single digits, and the outstanding claims after all of these years of being under OJI.
We are in single digits at 8 right now.
At 8, okay, well, that's good. All right, so Mrs. Kennedy, we manage our own on-the-job injury program. Governments have an option to have that program in place, and we've had it in place for a number of years now. Okay, we're ready to move on to the actual workers' comp OJI statistics from Mr. Dan Good, please.
Good afternoon. In the month of August, we had 24 injuries requiring medical attention to the county employees. You can see from the report there the breakout. That brings us to a total of 138 for the year to date. 83 of those are OSHA recordable, 37 had restricted days, 18 are lost time days, and 28 all others. The next page of the report, the graph compares this year to the 2 previous years. You can see we're up just slightly this year from where we were 2 previous years. However, just like to remind you that we did have a new school opened up this year. Probably got over 100 employees out there at Rocky Fork, and we've also increased employees in the county general. Next page of your report will show you the incurred dollars. We do have a spike in the month of May. That's basically contributed to one injury. And there'll be some subrogation on that injury also, so we'll hope to recover some of that. Also, just to remind you that any incurred dollars, it takes about a year for those incurred dollars to close out and finally get settled. So as you look at this, you'll know that the 2 previous years, they're pretty well settled down. This year's going to take a little while to get settled down yet. The incurred dollars for this for the month of August was $40,855. And from your report, you'll see that 10 of those injuries were with the Board of Education. The incurred dollars for those 10 were $4,900. County General had the other 14, and just under $36,000 at $35,955. The last page of your report breaks down the injury for the County Generals to the different departments that they occurred in. You'll notice they occurred in the Sheriff Department, Ambulance, County Maintenance, and Juvenile Detention, as you see there.
So, Mr. Good, you have been doing re-inspections as well. So can you talk about what our safety inspection process is and then what your follow-up involves?
Yes. Each year we've contracted to have an outside company come in, actually do safety inspections at all the county schools and county offices. That's done, at least it starts in January. They usually get out the 1st of February. It's all completed by the end of May. Once that happens, we give the school about 6 months to get all those things worked out. I am in the process now, started back after Labor Day, visiting every school to go back by, meet with the lead custodian, review the report that they had at each individual school, see what they've accomplished as far as completing the, or applying with the recommendations that came out of the report, and then see if there's anything we can do to assist them, again, to meet those recommendations, get them prepared so that they'll be ready for when they come back after the first of the year. Right now, I'm about halfway through all the county schools.
What are you seeing from an abatement perspective? Are they mitigating the identified elements in the reports timely, or are you finding a lot of carryover from this year's reports where issues were identified?
I'm going to say that again now.
So have a lot of the abatement occurred, or are you still seeing open issues based on what was identified?
They're probably about still maybe a quarter open at this time. A lot of them has to do with things like setting up eye washes, things that they have to do work orders on and things like that. Most of the stuff that they can actually do their hands on are already taken care of and being completed. And it's also a thing, if they haven't got the work orders, we make sure that they do get them submitted and taken care of.
So we used to do this process internally, and we have seen a difference in utilizing an external vendor to come in and do the safety inspections. We get greater participation among the various departments and schools that we visit. There's just something psychological about having a third party come in the door versus having Dan walk in who works, you know, as a peer to them. And so we've been very pleased about the process and pleased with the performance of all the departments. And, you know, the issues that we've identified have not been significant in scale, and so that's been good.
That's absolutely true. With an outside source, it really gets a lot of attention. When you have somebody inside come in, they look at you like, this is my buddy. And so the outside source is not recognized as being their buddy, so they take a real quick attention on those things.
So the other thing that's kept Mr. Good busy for the last couple of months is our property claims. We've had 2 claims that we've worked on. One of those were around the Blackman Wrestling Building, and we have released that back to the Board of Education. We've completed that review and working with travelers in order to recoup what the policy limits are. And so that process has been completed, and it's back in their hands so that they can make determination on rebuild and things like that. The other is the Riverdale concession stands, which occurred, was it 2 weeks ago, Dr. Anthony, is that right? And so we've been working with travelers on that as well. We've completed alongside of them all of the investigations that need to complete, and so now we're just waiting on their estimates to come in to make sure that it is conclusive and that we agree with what the estimate numbers look like. And then once we have that, we'll be able to collect the policy limits on that as well, up to whatever the loss is. I will say that they have released us to go ahead and start the rebuild process on that, and working along with Belfer, who is the company that will be utilized to do the roof corrections and things like that that will be needed.
Prior to that this year too, so we had 3.
Right, and so Mr. Good just reminded me of the wind damage that we've had as well out at Christiana, and the team responded very well. And I can't speak highly enough of Kenneth Curley and his team and Mr. Clardy. They are always right on top of what's happening. They're very willing to work with us and to assist in the way that it's needed, and that partnership is valuable to us in those type of situations. So we do appreciate that from those gentlemen and their employees that work for them.
Any further information, Mr. Good?
That's all I have.
One of you members have any questions for him? Okay then, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next, we'll invite Mr. Puckett to give us a wellness update.
Good afternoon. A quick update on the Know Your Numbers campaign that is concluding this Saturday. And this information I'm about to present to you is up to date as of last Friday. So for the health risk assessment just alone for all those eligible, 3,998 have completed that. You're looking at about 64% of the population that, again, is eligible to take the health assessment. The biometric screenings, 4,399, just a little over 70%, 71%, and then total, and this is both of, those are people in the county who have completed both the biometric screening and online health assessment as of last Friday, 3,264, which is right about 53%. I know that that number seems kind of low given that it's due, the deadline is Saturday, but we do have quite a few physician screening forms as well as online health assessments that are in the queue to be processed. So that number will drastically increase over the next couple weeks. It's just with all the influx of stuff that's come in right now, it's kind of slowed down. 745 biometric screenings were completed in August of 2017 at the MedPoint clinics versus 962 in August of 2016. Year to date, we're at about 2,722 versus last year at the same time, 2,700. So we're about kind of where we were. I will say the MedPoint clinic will be doing walk-ins this Saturday. And the Saturday is the 30th, so we're expecting about 400 to 500 people on Saturday. And I can tell you that last year in the month of September, they did almost 2,000 biometric screenings, so it's quite a bit. Really still trying to work on avoiding people waiting till the last minute. We've talked about, what we've done in the past with incentives and things like that. It's just hard with everything going on. We're still going to kind of work to continue to eliminate the influx at the end as much as possible. For our coaching at the MedPoint clinics, the wellness coordinator for the month of August had 3 initial visits with 49 follow-up visits, giving you a total of 52 visits. For the month of August, our dietitian, she had 4 initial visits with 13 follow-ups for a total of 17. The lifestyle management class, I wanted to point this out. This actually happened in September, but it was too good not to share with you guys. Our dietitian put together a class on the anti-inflammatory diet. We catered food, and it was a big hit. We had almost 30 people. We had 28. We had a lot of good feedback from that class, a lot of good participation. We're excited to carry that momentum forward for our next class, which will be in November. And we're thinking of doing something around like meal planning, grocery shopping, something like that. And we'll be communicating that out. So if you can, please attend, and the dates will follow later. We talked last month about Wellness on Wheels. That's where we go to every school in the county, promote the biometric screening, online health assessment. If any of the teachers or faculty and staff need help with, logging in or checking to see if their points are there, we're there for them. We go about 2 hours each school. Participation total was about 316 this year, so you're looking at an average of about 7 visits per school. We did communicate out well in advance that we were coming. We're going to try to work on ways to improve to increase participation for next year, because we do see the benefit of coming to those schools, because a lot of teachers, have several different types of questions, can't log in, or they, don't know their password, things like that. Some upcoming events. This is kind of getting into, again, some exciting times for us. The Wellness Fair, if you look, there's a save the date flyer there, nice fancy flyer that has a reminder to save the date. It'll be Friday, October the 13th from 3 to 7. If you guys could, just when you leave here, wherever you guys work, if you do work in the county, to stick that somewhere up in a common area, we greatly appreciate that, and then spread the word. We have a little over 60 vendors coming to that event. We'll be doing flu shots, mammograms, angio screens, and have a lot of fun giveaways and things like that. And even this year, we're doing something different for the kids. We have a train that's coming through to be pulled by a tractor. It's kind of unique and fun, so bring your kids. I'm sure they'll enjoy that too. And then the flu shot clinic, you also have the flu shot flyer. You can see the dates and the times for that at the MedPoint clinics coming up in October. We're also, again, like I said earlier, doing flu shots at the Wellness Fair also. And then the last but not least, the Life Services EAP information overload, how to process all the information you get on a day-to-day basis. That's available to you at lifeserviceseap.com. Again, the username is employee, the username is Rutherford, and the password is employee. And if you guys don't have any questions for me, I'm going to let my friend here, Chuck, talk about the new exciting stuff that we have going on the My Cigna app. Any questions? Yeah.
Did you go to every school for the HRA biometric, the 316 total visits,
Yes, ma'am.
averaging 7? That's every school?
Every school within Rutherford County, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that's even including Rocky Fork. That wasn't on I wasn't aware of that school at first, but we made sure we got them taken care of also.
Thank you.
Other questions? I have a couple. Tell us what the inflammatory diet is about.
This may be a better question for the dietitian who's not here, but I'll give it a shot. Basically what it's talking about, and a lot of what's going on these days is a lot of the foods, a lot of the chemicals that they put in foods and things like that cause, us to swell up, and yeah, I'm not really sure too much about it, but it's the main thing that the class was about was focusing on ingredients. And one thing that I will say that is eye-opening. Technically, if you're looking at an ingredient and there's more than 5 things on there that you can't pronounce, you really shouldn't be eating it. So, yeah.
So maybe we'll ask Ms. McNair to come
Yeah,
up and
that's-
talk to this
sorry,
since
that
the
one kinda caught me off
dietitian
guard
works
there.
for her. And she's a nurse.
Yeah,
Let's
she
see if we
might be
can
able to
get
help
some
us out with
expanded
that.
explanation here. And we've got Hillary King coming up with her, who's the wellness coordinator at the Premise Health.
We're so fortunate I brought a copy of the PowerPoint slide. Miss Hillary is going to discuss it with you
Yeah,
guys.
I'd be happy to go over it with you a little bit. So I work very closely with our dietitian, and so we wanted to put something together that really enticed the employees to want to come, and something that we can offer to help improve health, right, throughout our community. So we chose the anti-inflammatory diet, which is very near and dear to our dietitian's heart. And what she did is she first went into all of the foods that increase inflammation in our diet. She talked about different diseases that are affected by having inflammation within the body. And she went in very, very detailed of breads, sodas, not all breads, but certain types of bread, your processed foods, sodas, like I said, and different things like that that increase inflammation. And after she kind of went over that, then she went into foods that you can eat to decrease inflammation in your body so that joint pain goes away. Maybe you can reduce medications, help blood pressure, all of those things that are affected by having inflammation in the body. What we can do if we rid the body of inflammation, all the things that can be helped or bettered within us. So the whole presentation was about that, and we had, like he said, some food there, so they got to eat a salad, and we had some sodas there, but not the bad sodas. There are some good sodas that have good natural ingredients that are non-GMO. They're sweetened with stevia so that they don't cause inflammation. So we had those there for our tenants to try. So.
Okay, I think that's helpful, so.
That's basically what I said, right?
Now,
But to that, if you guys are interested, we can send that. If you guys weren't able to attend, we can send that slideshow out to you guys. It's got some great information in there as well. But any other questions? If not, I'll pass it over to Chuck.
Mr. Puckett,
yes, sir.
these numbers you quoted up at the very top, that was through when? Through last
Friday.
Last Friday, so we've got a few more days in here.
Correct.
But if I'm sort of halfway computing this right, it looks like our eligible participants is like 6,000, and
It is.
71% of that's about 4,200. So we still got 1,800 people to go here. Is that about right?
Yes, sir. There's from the reports that we ran, there's 6,243 eligibles to participate.
And about how many did not do this last year, Ms. Street?
Last year, we were around 300.
About 300. So we got to find at least 1,500 more
Well, I think Ms. McNair would tell you most of them have already been in this week.
this week. Okay.
Yeah, they've had a heavy influx of individuals coming through the line in the morning, and so taking advantage of both the morning walk-in as well as other hours. You can tell Ms. McNair tries to get out of coming up here, but every month I call her up to the floor, so she's coming back to talk to this.
Okay.
So out of these numbers that I think, and Daniel, correct me if this is incorrect, the numbers that he is showing on this, these are the numbers we've already processed in the clinic, meaning that our providers have reviewed the labs, they signed off on the labs, and the letter has been completed, the form has been faxed to Cigna, and we have mailed a copy of everything to the patient. Then there's a 2 to 3 week turnaround time once it gets to Cigna that they process it, and the point goes on to the website and shows that they've completed it. So I think these numbers do not entail all of those. So there are several that have been done, completed, the stick has been done, the labs have been reported, but we're still trying to process in the clinic. Then we send to Cigna, and Cigna has to process it as well. We do expect 400 to 600 this weekend on Saturday, so if you talk to coworkers and they haven't completed it, please let them know we're doing our best. We are fully staffed. I think everybody but one person on my staff will be working this Saturday, so we're definitely planning ahead and prepared, but just know it may be a little bit of a wait come Saturday because we are expecting such a large number to come through.
Okay, well, that's good. That's even more encouraging. Thank you. All right, Mr. Bucket, continue on now.
We did last year, and I'll say this, we did last year have 91% completion rate for both, and also the year prior. So the wellness team that makes up quite a few of us, we've been out trying to be foot soldiers and promoting the best as we can. So hopefully, obviously, the goal would be 100%. But I do think, fingers crossed that it will increase from the 91% we've seen the last 2 years. So we'll be sharing with that hopefully with you guys next month.
Just as a reminder, nationally, on average, in these type of campaigns, you get about a 50% completion rate. So we're well above the bar for what you would see in most other corporations and businesses.
I'd like to just take a moment and talk about some updates to the MyCigna app. If you look, we have a handout for the MyCigna app and One Guide. So the MyCigna app has been around for quite some time. It has a lot of really cool features. It's recently had an update. It has a service called One Guide and a One Guide team. So what One Guide can do is you have a live chat feature now that can be utilized through your smartphone app, be it Android or iPhone. It's actually a team that can help you. Consider it a medical concierge for those services. So if you needed to know if a provider is in network, if you had those questions on, is this service, what is the cost for this surgery, information like that, that is now available at your fingertips at any time. In addition to that, it also holds all of your medical cards for everyone covered under your insurance plan. So now, instead of waiting for new cards, if you are in need of those, they're at your fingertips. You can actually use them in the office. Another really neat feature of this is you can organize it by your medical team. So you can, if you go to a particular doctor, a particular dentist, a particular service of that type, you can save your medical team within that app. It gives you a reference of their phone number, their address, their business address, things like that. So if you did need to send that information out to someone, you have it at your fingertips as well. It's extremely useful if you do have questions or you have employees that have questions about their Cigna services and things like that, and they need it in a short amount of time. It's an excellent service that's now provided through the One Guide service by Cigna. Are there any questions in regards to the One Guide app or its capabilities?
So a couple of things I want to mention is it does have the click-to-chat feature on it, which is really valuable. If you go to the doctor and you don't get out until 5 o'clock from the doctor and they've told you that you need to go have an x-ray done and you want to make sure that it's in network where they're sending you, you can actually go click to chat and ask an agent online and they'll be able to answer that question. So there's additional after hours support there beyond our normal hours if you're not able to reach our office. The other thing too that I mentioned about it is it has a telehealth aspect to it, which is really important for our employees for this reason. Anytime we talk about deadlines and things like that, people say, oh, I don't have time, I'm so busy, and actually I've started reading a lot of articles on the new it's like cool to be busy. I don't know if you've have been reading articles about that. Like as a society, we are becoming accustomed to when someone asks how you're doing, the standard answer is, oh, I'm so busy. Like if you don't say you're so busy, people look at you like, how are you pulling this off? Because everybody's so busy, right? But that's a different soapbox. Anyway, so on the telehealth, you have a child, they don't tell you they're sick after school. You walk in the door, this child is sick, there's no health care available. You could actually go through the telehealth app, schedule a telehealth appointment. You'll have a doctor online that you'll have a consult with. They can call you in prescriptions, and that can also be billed to your Cigna insurance policy. So it is a great benefit. You're not feeling well, but you have a child that you need to get to baseball or football practice. You can actually have your appointment while you're sitting there waiting for your child to get finished with their practice. So there's a lot of neat features on this, and we encourage you to go back and talk to your employees about downloading the app and taking a look at it. You also, once you log in, it does thumbprint on your smartphone, so you don't have to remember your login, which for me personally is my favorite aspect because I can't remember all of my logins anymore. So we just wanted to bring this to you and make you aware of it.
Now, have we already communicated somehow with all of our participants about this availability?
Yes, sir, we have.
Well, she says yes, she says no, she hadn't seen it. Now, Mrs. Stevenson, so we've got these 3 pages here, so what else are we going to do, if anything? Ask your question first.
I do have a question. So whenever I went on personally to set it up on my iPhone, there are 2 different My Cigna apps, so I'm not sure which one. There is a My Cigna, and then there's a Cigna Health Benefits, and they have different features. So which one are you showing in here? Because that might be important for us to know. Okay.
App that existed previously. The One Guide is just an addition to that existing app. So it's the app that you could go to see your current medical claim status, your eligibility status, things like that. So it will be the main. There are actually instructions on the handout as well to make sure it's covered.
So in fairness to Ms. Kroll, they are trying to get out for fall break, but I assume that the email has been forwarded on to the Board of Education.
I have communicated it to my people at my
Got you, yeah.
that it was communicated.
Okay, that's what I assumed whenever we were getting the varying head nods back there, so we understand that.
And one last thing too, I know it's with the deadline and everything approaching, another couple cool features on the app is you can actually confirm that you
Go
have.
into the mic, Mr. Puckett.
Oh, I'm sorry. One last thing, there's 2 other features that we failed to mention that are very helpful as well. You can confirm your Cigna points on the app, which is very, very helpful, and you can also do your online health assessment on the app. Makes it a lot easier. So those things for people who are out and about, if you're waiting in line at the doctor's office, you can knock that health assessment out right there on your phone, and then you can confirm that you did it.
Now, I'm just thinking out loud here. Mr. Puckett, I see Ms. Ackland sitting here, and she's got about 400+ employees out there. And it might be wise if you would have a personal appointment with Ms. Ackland, teach her about all of this so she can help her people out there. And
So
would you be able to do that if she requested?
Absolutely, we can do that.
And
So we actually went to roll call 2 weeks ago.
Did you?
We
Okay,
did.
good.
We went to all the roll calls. Mr.
So they
Chapman
know
and I
about
did.
this.
And we promoted this and talked to them about the upcoming open enrollment and other things.
Okay, but we will be sure she's fully operational with this device, right? And don't come see me because I'm not participating, but it might take you a half a day. Okay, what else do you want to tell us?
that'll cover it, sir.
A couple of other things real quick before they walk off. We did present to the leadership team, the Rutherford County General Government Leadership Team on Tuesday, and we presented a lot of the information that you've heard today in terms of the wellness. And one of the things that we did ask is for feedback from them, and we'll ask the same of you all. If you all have programming ideas or incentive ideas, I would ask that you reach out to one of the 3 of us to share those thoughts with us so that we can explore it to see if it's something that we can do and infuse into our program. So we are open and receptive to that type of feedback.
Okay, anyone else want to ask these gentlemen anything? Okay, well, thank you very much. Keep up the good work. Okay, now we get down to a couple more items here. The GASP45 Projection. Tell us about, I guess, the results of our audit or whatever they've done for us here.
All right. So this is just information only. Sometimes, we've had to face very difficult decisions in the last several years, and Ms. Nolan and I worked with Aon to have a GASP45 evaluation done. We are moving into GASP75, which means that our liabilities will be reflected on the financial report. Did I say that correctly, Ms. Nolan? And we wanted to share an update on GASP45, and what that means is what we did in terms of reviewing our retirement benefits and modifying those benefits several years ago, and what impact did that have overall to current liabilities and future liabilities. So I just wanted to give this information to you and walk through it with you briefly. We won't cover every page. I'll just hit the highlights for you so that you'll have it. If you go to page 3 of the document, if I can get there, you'll see that it has it considered the current cash flow cost, and, as it states, they're much lower than the baseline of 2009 forecast costs, which is when the first forecast was done in terms of the retirement plan modifications. It considered the reduced benefits and reduced future costs, and it shows that the savings are still growing as post-2010 hires move into retirement. So if you'll look at this, you'll see that the expense of benefit payments funding basis for 2009, the projection was $4.6 million. In 2017, going back and looking at what actually performed in 2013, you'll see that it was reduced to $3.4 million for a payout reduction of $1.2 million. So that's how you read this report. And Ms. Nolan, feel free to jump in at any point.
Just the one point on this is it's the 2009 projection, and all of our changes that we made was in 2010. So as I'm reading, this is showing us
Impact of those
the
changes.
impact of our changes that we have made.
Right. So if we move forward to 2017 on the report, you'll see that in 2009, the projection was $7.3 million. But when you consider the changes and things that's been done in terms of the retirement benefits, the expected payouts will come in at $3.5 million for a payout reduction of $3.8 million for 52% savings in 2017. And you can see that those savings beginning with 2014 forward all the way through 2023 are in excess of 50% annually.
Just one reminder, first page says post-employment benefits other than pensions. So this has nothing to do with the pensions, the TCRS participation. This is all about any other thing that's been done, health insurance, et cetera.
Right. This is just
Those
the
changes
insurance.
have resulted in these reductions in the projected benefits.
That is correct. That's right. So if you move to the 4th page of the report, you can see what the 2009 projection versus the 2017 projection looks like, and the comparative savings. So we'll skip to the 3rd box, which shows that in 2013, the ART reduction is $12.7 million for a 46% savings, and this year in 2017, it's an $18.8 million for a 57% savings.
Now on this part, I just remind you, this is it's a calculation for the annual required contribution that we are making no contribution other than a little contribution when we're matching the insurance premiums on a current year-to-year basis.
So if you look at your Fund 264 report and you go to the last page, you will see that it says net OPEB, other post-employment benefits, right? And you'll see that it starts with year 2011 and it goes through 2016. Does everybody see that on Fund 264? Right? And you'll see that the total for the end of fiscal year 15-16 ends at $93,121,086. And that is the liabilities that are projected for retirement medical benefits for those who are currently retired and future retirees. So to Ms. Nolan's point, when we talk about premiums and we pass annual premium increases and we determine what those premiums are, that is only to fund that upcoming calendar years. We have, as of the end of June, $93 million in expected liability for which we are not collecting anything on, and we are not setting aside those funds currently. And so,
Okay, I'm sure every one of these folks are right up with you. Let's start over, if you don't mind, because I'm not following exactly where you are. So if you don't mind, bear with me.
That's fine. So if you go to this one,
Okay, go to,
264.
okay, it's got the purple and yellow on the, okay.
Yeah, it's the last.
This sheet right here,
Right.
that's the one you're working from, right?
Right, Fund 264. So the net OPEB, if you look at it, that's where the 93 million is in the total. So as we are here as employees and we talk about, our health care as we become retirees, and we talk about the difficulty of active rates and what those rate increases look like, we wanted to make you aware in this format that we do have these other liabilities out there, which will start being included on our financials that we publish annually, because that's the guidelines that are now required, and that we will have to speak to the funding of the $93 million that we have out there today. You have something you want to say, Ms. Nolan?
Under GASP45, the information is calculated, but it's only in the notes to the financial statements. It's not on the face of the financial statements. So that's one of the differences between 45 and 75 is moving toward putting it all on the financial statements using the same methodologies that we now have to report pensions. That was something that was a couple years ago that we're now reporting on the face of the financials.
Okay, so let's,
And let me just, one other point where Melissa is talking about on this 264. When GASB 45 started, we had a huge liability that was never reported. And the guidance from GASB did not require us to put that whole liability out there. The process was everybody started with zero. Through this annual required contribution calculation, we were adding to the liability every year. When you get to the next page of her document, page 5, this is the actuarial accrued liability. You can see as of 2/16, the 2017 projection is 150.8 million. But had we stayed with what we were doing, it would have been 292.5. I mean, so all in all, is just saying we made tremendous strides to reduce the liability, but yet we still have a liability.
Value. If you go back to page 4 so that you can see kind of what we're growing at. For 2016, which is reflective in the 264 report, you can see that the annual required contributions. So in theory, what we should be setting aside for current future liabilities is $14.1 million. So in addition to the premiums that we needed to collect that totaled nearly $70 million, we needed an additional $14 million to fully fund our retirement program from a medical perspective.
So page 4 and 5 have to do with all the accounting. Page 3 really is our pay-as-you-go.
Right. So how much do you need and how much are you actually setting out? So really, if you look at that 14.1 for 2016, you can see from page 3 that 3.6 million of it is actually paid out during the year. The rest would be set aside for accumulated reserves for future liabilities based on what the employee population looks like within that fiscal year period. So basically, we wanted to just overwhelm you all with big numbers and let you know that, one, the difficult decisions that you make do have a long-term impact. And for those of you that were part of this committee during that process, it was very tedious and stressful and very involved. And we appreciate your work on that because you can see through this actuarial study what the outcome of that review quantified.
So the $292 million liability we had for future payments in 2009 is sitting at $150 million now. Is that fair?
Correct. Yes, it's a fair statement.
And if we would somehow put in an additional, contribute an additional $14 million a year, that $150 million wouldn't grow
It would still grow because if
slightly
you,
as we go further out in years.
well, annually, you'll still have to make the $14 million a year
annually,
contribution.
every
Right.
year.
Right.
To make a comparison with TCRS, with the pension, the money, we fully fund that every year. And the money is invested. We send the money, we can't get it back. So when they are actuarially determining what our required contribution is, they are calculating this is our liability, and they take all the revenue that we have sent and it's sitting in there, and they say, well, this will grow at X percent, 7.5% I think is what they're using, and they match that against the liability of all of our retirees' pension. Now, flip over to what we do in our health insurance, our health with same theory. While there is money in the fund, we can touch it and use it. It's not set aside. So really we have no assets that are offsetting these liabilities in the future when they do these calculations. So one possible way to reduce a liability is to set up an irrevocable trust and set money aside for this, and it will offset some of the liability. Now, some governments, I'm going to say a lot of governments, are very similar to us. They are addressing it on a year-to-year basis. The difference between a pension and this health insurance benefit is our governing body can choose to stop retiree benefits. If they made that decision, our liability goes away. Unlike pensions, they can only say from this point forward, anybody hired after this date, they can make a change. The governing body is still on the hook for all the other employees. So that is kind of a difference. So while these numbers look scary, and really what is the day-to-day, I guess I want y'all to realize that there is a liability for these promises that we've said. I'm not going to say promises, for these things that we have in place that we say that we're going to do in the future.
I recently attended the State and Local Government Benefits Association meeting, and to support what Ms. Nolan just said, it was discussed about the upcoming 75, and of those participants that were there, and they're nationwide participants, no one had gone through the process of setting up a trust yet. They were all kind of waiting to see how things would progress once 75 was implemented and it rolled out onto the financial report.
We considered setting some money aside and investing ourselves, much like TCRS does, but we take some money and we invest it. Of course, I know there's a risk with that because if the market goes bad, then we lose our money too, but that might be a way to offset.
And that's what I was alluding to, but because of, we had this discussion somewhat in the beginning. If you think of right when in 2010, we were saying, let's wait because we don't know what the federal government's Health Care Act was going to do to us. And we thought, well, we may not have to worry about it, but that's still in a state of flux of what's going to happen nationally. And I think as far as my peers are concerned, it's like once you've set that money aside, you can only use it for this purpose.
In a simplistic kind of way, just to stop the $14 million a year increase if we don't do something. If we had $200 million in the bank and it made 7.5% average earnings, that would generate $15 million. So just not to reduce the 150, but just to keep it from increasing, we would have to put I'm thinking, Lisa can correct me, $200 million of actual money invested in assets that we think are going to earn 7.5%. And I don't think we quite got 200 million in our fund right now, do we? That's surplus that we could use for that purpose. But somewhere along the way, this group will have to make some sort of recommendation, likely. I don't know whether it's this year or next year or when.
I'm interested in seeing how the rating agencies use this information once it's on the financial statements, how they are going to use it.
Ms. Hickerson,
I have a statement, question, or whatever. Basically, in a nutshell, we're not the only ones in this boat. All the other county governments, I'm not sure about cities and other municipalities, but we're all in the same boat, whether we're self-funded or not, of accruing this large number. And we've kept it at a small number, considering it could have been larger, based on the choices we made. Sitting here, we made those choices, but we're not sitting in Williamson County's table to see what they're discussing, and we don't know what their OPED is on their financial statement. So people have to realize this is Rutherford County, and these choices were made to help hopefully save something, that it's there for our employees today and the ones that can retire and take it then. But we got to realize we're not the only ones in this boat addressing this, and it's just something that we'll have to take and look at, and they are hard choices. But everybody has to remember it's not just Rutherford County, it's everybody.
So anyway, we'll continue to track and monitor this. We just wanted to bring you all up to date on, what the projection had looked like, what the impact of the changes that were made have resulted in, and educate you about this process.
hey, if there are no other questions or discussions on GASB, we're ready to talk about the dependent audit bid. Ms. Street.
So the committee had approved for a dependent audit bid to be released specific to the verification of the spouses who participate on the Rutherford County Medical Plan. And Willis Towers Watson, our broker, assisted us with the bid process, and we released that bid and accepted bids at the purchasing committee meeting, and we had 4 very different companies that had submitted their bids to us. Those 4 companies were Hodges Mace, BMI, Aon, and HMS. And you have a book there in front of you that says Dependent Eligibility Audit Results, and I'll be working from this book for discussion today. And I'd like to thank Ms. Derrick for helping us with the size of the pages so that we can actually read the data. It's very helpful, other than squeezing it onto one page, which we've seen in the past. So along with myself, Ms. Derrick from Willis Towers Watson, and Lou Diaz, who's the broker at Willis Towers Watson, Ms. Allen and Melissa Career, who works in the risk management office, interviewed 3 of the 4 individuals that had submitted proposals last week. And we reviewed them from a financial aspect, delivery and service, and what their expected outcome was. And I can walk you through their sheets so that you'll have an idea of what the financials looked like. So if you go to your book, we'll look at Hodges Mace, which is the first. And part of the interview process, what it does is it allows us to flush out cost so that we can, identify anything that may not have been included in the proposal, express any additional needs or desires that we have, and we can accumulate the total expected cost from that. So if you look at the cost on Hodges Mace, you'll see that the overall costs are projected to be $20,776. This assumes the project cost We've asked for a pre-announcement letter, which will go out to everyone who has a spouse on the insurance to say that the audit is forthcoming. And then any additional cost as noted below in the section. We did ask for Spanish translation of the documents, and we've also asked for a repository of the documents that are submitted once the audit is complete. So those costs have been included as well. And what it resulted in was $11 per dependent is what they had submitted for projects costs. And we used a 1,568 total dependent population for all of our calculations with the various groups. And when you add the $1.25 per letter for the pre-announcement postcard and the $1 for the Spanish translation self-addressed stamped envelope, which is something that we also requested be added for the convenience of our employees, and then providing the materials to us upon completion, it added an additional $1 per dependent. So they ended at $20,776. Moving on to page 2, you'll see the results for BMI, which was another company that we interviewed. And their overall cost for all the things that we mentioned previously was $36,394. Their per dependent cost came in at $19 as opposed to the $11 for Hodges Mace. They did include materials, postage, and fulfillment in that PEPM cost, or that per dependent cost. They had pre-announcement postcards at $1,750, and then the Spanish translation had a $2,500 setup fee and $1.50 per spouse for an additional cost of $4,852 for the total of $36,394. Moving to the next page, you'll see Audit, which is an Aon subsidiary. Their cost came in overall at $37,162 with a $22.05 per dependent project cost. And the materials, postage, and fulfillment with appeals management for 90 days after was $1.65 per employee, and materials, postage, and fulfillment were included in the $22.05 per dependent, with total cost again at $37,162. HMS, we did not interview Aon as they were the fourth highest of the bids that we received. We did interview the next, which is HMS. Their overall cost came in at $33,752 for a $20.25 per dependent project cost. The materials, postage, fulfillment were included, and they had a $2,000 Spanish translation. And I would like to remind the committee that in the proposal Cigna submitted in the medical bid that we completed back earlier this year, they've allotted $50,000, up to $50,000 to the county for a dependent eligibility audit. So we will be able to recover all of our fees that we incur as part of this process from Cigna once it's completed. So after review of the financials and looking at the different services that was offered and what our needs were and what the various vendors had to offer, we felt that it was appropriate to bring Hodges Mace today to present to the committee so they can explain their process and their proposal to you all. So Mayor, if you'd like to introduce the gentleman from Hodges Mace, we can go ahead and begin with their presentation.
Okay, I have two cards here, and I don't know who's on first base, but anyway, Mr. Alex White and Mr. Mark Helton may come forward and tell us about Hodges Mace and give us a little bit of background on what your experience in this world of the audit for dependents is, et cetera.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and committee members. It's been a very interesting meeting. I wasn't expecting to be here for this whole thing, but it's interesting to hear kind of the issues y'all face within the county here with benefits and with insurance as a whole. And I assure you, you're not alone in that world. Hodges Mace if you look at your presentation here, I'm not going to go super deep into everything I have here. I'm sure you have better things to do, but just to give you a better brief overview of what we're all about, talk about our agenda. The mayor was kind enough to introduce us here. Our understanding of the objectives of the spousal audit here. Usually we call it a dependent audit, but we're only doing spouses in this instance, or you guys are only doing spouses. Kind of who we are, and then I'll turn it over to Mark, who's our subject matter expert in the dependent audit area. From our understanding of the RFP and from our experience in the industry, these objectives on page 3 are very common, but it's also very thorough. Number 1 is develop a strategic partnership with somebody reputable in the industry and with a government sector experience, which we have extensive. As a service company as a whole in the benefits world, that is our number 1 objective, is to have a strategic partnership where we're working together to get these things done. The second part is conduct the audit at a competitive price and with the focus on the following. As you can see, our price was exceptionally competitive in this case. So much so that they were a little bit surprised and had to ask us a lot of questions. And I can assure you, your risk management group is very thorough. I have done a lot of these quotes and bids, and I was asked a lot of great questions that honestly had never been asked before. And as well as Mark, who's got 20 years experience in the industry. So great job by them. But again, achieving superior service levels. Number 1 in my book, and I think everybody's book, is minimizing member disruption. That's always a challenge, and it's not as much a challenge as it is a concern for everyone involved, especially when there's this many decision makers and this many people who have employees under them, and we do an exceptional job with that. Creating substantial cost savings, which we have a 3-to-1 return on investment guarantee. We've never come close to having to give any money back or lower our price to get there, and generally it's well in excess of that. Promoting plan compliance. It's our experience, for the most part, these employees that have ineligible spouses on the plan rarely even know it, okay? Especially with spouses or ex-spouses, right? Hey, the court said I had to keep my ex on coverage. Yes, they did, but they didn't say you had to be on Rutherford County's plan, right? So we run into a lot of that. It's not we don't approach it as a penal thing. It's more of a, hey, the plan has to be in compliance. So, and again, lowering risk. We don't want people on the plan who are not supposed to be, because when claim time comes, while you may have a closeness with your employees, your stop-loss vendor does not, and they are going to look into every single person. So again, that's a very large risk to the county when you have employees on there or spouses on there that are not eligible. So just a bit, if you turn the page, a bit about Hodges Mace. We were founded in 2004 as a benefits communication, enrollment, and administration company. So everything to do with the delivery of your strategy. And as I sit in here and you look at all the people that are involved with benefits, right? The committee as a whole, our employees in risk management, HR, your broker, you're spending a lot of time, a lot of effort in coming up with a benefits strategy, way to control cost, how to do more with less with regards to with HR and communications and everything else. So as a company, that is our goal, is to simplify benefits for everyone, all the stakeholders, with a smarter approach to both delivery and day-to-day management. And that's with technology. We have a bin admin system of our own called SmartBin, and compliance with things like dependent audits like we're doing here. And then also on the service side, just so to give you an idea of what we do annual enrollment campaigns where we come in and help communicate things. You've done a lot of strategy work with trying to bring down costs, whether it's the wellness program, telemedicine, all those things. All those things are very hard to get adoption on, and we're, as a company, that's what we help. And let me just give a plug to your folks back here at Premise Health. I have never, ever heard of anyone having 91% participation in the wellness program. That is off the charts good. And that's one of the main things people hire us for is, hey, help us with this communication campaign. And I don't know what the secret sauce is, but it's, you guys are.
Just email them to death. So
Well,
they'll do it. So they'll quit emailing them.
Let me tell you, email has become less and less effective, right? I mean, it's just another email. I'm going to open this. But yeah, that's, so for those of you that may not be in the insurance world but are on this committee and hear that as a low number, that is an unbelievably good number. So I was going to raise my hands. Can we help you with that? But you guys got it on your own. So we have 250 plus employees in 2 offices in the Atlanta area and a few satellite offices across the country. And again, have done literally hundreds of these dependent audits throughout. If you turn the page to kind of why clients work with us, and I've kind of spoken to this already, but execute complex benefit strategies, right? Again, there's a lot more to benefits. There's a lot. It's not getting less complex, and the cost is not getting lower. And, you know, the numbers I like to use, I mean, I think 20 years ago between comp and total rewards, it was probably 80-20. It's not anywhere near that now. That total rewards number is going up, and it's growing a lot faster. So we've got to keep those costs down somehow, and a lot of that is with communication and those kind of things. Improve employee satisfaction. When the employees know about their benefits, they understand them, they appreciate them, they like their employer, they like their job, you have less turnover. It's pretty simple kind of idea, but again, achieving it is difficult. Augment internal HR functions. Between risk management and HR, I'd imagine y'all are not constantly adding people to those roles to go along with the complexity, right? So we're constantly trying to do less with more. That is something that we do to help you with. And again, achieve ROI. You know, in a group with 6,000 employees, you've probably got $60 million in benefit spend. Am I low there? I don't even know. But if there was any other line item on there, on your balance sheet or your P&L, to speak in the private sector terminology, but there's nothing that big that gets less attention to try to get our people to love it, right? So again, and that just doesn't work anymore. So again, that's the kind of thing we help with. If you look at the iceberg metaphor on the next page, this is my favorite graphic. It's the most simple thing of all time, but the boat captain and us people in benefits, we understand that 90% of the work on this stuff is below the water, right? Your average person out there that's working for you and under you, they got no clue what it takes to administer that. And again, that's going completely unrecognized, but is a necessity. So we're a company that helps with those kind of things. And then above the line, right? This is where we really need to bring value, and we have to. It used to be, we'd hope that people appreciate and understand the benefits, but the rate is growing. We've really got to drive understanding, appreciation, and engagement and consumerism from our employees. So the next page is just kind of a fancy look at some of our clients. I said this in a meeting with them before, is, I put this on here, look at all these great names we have as our clients, but I didn't put any of the government ones on there, which is what I should have done, and I didn't. But anyway, I apologize for that. But as you can see, we've got a wide spectrum, and we probably have 55 clients across our book of business with 5,000 plus lives. So a wide array in a lot of different industries. So with that, that little blip about us, I'm going to turn it over to Mark to talk kind of about our process, how we view the world. If you turn the page from the dependent verification, this blue slide, and then look at the overview, it looks really basic. What is a dependent verification review? We know that you know what that is, but we're going to tell it in our viewpoint, how we see the world there, and then how we go about it. and then some best practices, and then for your review after, if you want to look at it, some case studies and how these things have turned out, which as a salesperson that sells a lot of things around benefits, this is the greatest, easiest thing in the world. I shouldn't say easy, it's the greatest thing to sell, because we never walk away from a client that's unhappy, right? May have a blip here and there. Why is this person giving me so much grief about coming off the plan? But in the end, it's always cost effective. It always saves money, and it's generally well received. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, Alice. Really, I want to be very cautious to make sure I answer any questions that you have today about the process itself, but I'd like to walk you through what we see as the process and how we do it. This is a little bit of a different project, as we talked with Ms. Street about, because we normally are doing an audit where we are looking at children as well as spouses. And because y'all already have an internal process that does a great job, we're kind of coming in to augment that a bit. You've already done some of the checking. You've seen that they've got a marriage certificate. Now we're trying to follow up and find out, are they still married? And then what's their access to coverage outside? Because your plan is based on limiting the ability for someone who has access elsewhere to be on this plan. Certainly you don't want employees to sort of milking the system and running up your costs. So we're going to assist with that. So this is a little bit of a different type of project, but all of our projects are custom built. And when we sat down and talked with Ms. Street and her team, we were going through all of the different pieces. How are we going to do it? Starting with the ability to do a pre-announcement letter, something that goes out and sort of forewarns employees that this is coming. So they're kind of expecting it. And certainly if you have additional communication pieces, or your leadership group can go out and talk about that, that helps a lot. We start off with what we see a project is and what it's not. And what it's not is, we're not trying, as Alex mentioned earlier, we're not trying to be vindictive and mean about this. This is a process of we're checking. We just want to make sure everybody's where they should be, and if not, get them where they should be. If they have access to coverage elsewhere, that's great. They should go there. And if not, the last thing you want to do is have employees that are milking the system and then you find out about it later on. So we approach this from a perspective of communicating with the employees. As Alex mentioned, a lot of what we do is communications. So our process that we built almost 10 years ago, I was actually involved in that. My background's actually human resources. I spent almost 25 years as an HR director. So when we built this process, one of the things we said was we want to build this so that HR would accept it. It's something that works well with the HR team, doesn't make the HR team look bad, and doesn't punish employees or sound evil in its intent. We're really just trying to check and find out where people belong. If you're doing what we call a full audit, which is where we're actually checking to find out how many people are no longer married, people think, oh, I've got court order to cover someone. Well, that means that they need to go elsewhere to get that coverage if they're no longer married. What happens is if they don't, then they wind up with a major claim. Reinsurance comes in and checks. They're not eligible. The employee could be charged with insurance fraud, could be asked for a refund of money. There could be all kinds of issues with the court because the court ordered them to have coverage. So again, we're trying to approach this from an educational perspective and making sure the employees understand what the rules are. If you flip over really 2 pages, the typical timeline, that's a normal project for us. We're going to start a little ahead of that, and we're actually going to do that pre-announcement letter. Then we do an announcement package that goes out to each employee. Again, this will be custom built for the process because it's a little different than a normal dependent audit. The process will allow the employee to submit documentation that we're going to require based on our conversation with the streets team. And those documents can be submitted to us in a number of ways. We are going to include an envelope inside the packet that they could put information in and send on to us. They can send it to us via secured upload through our actual portal system that they can log into if they wish. They can use a toll-free fax. They can take a picture with their smartphone and email it directly in, or if they have it on their computer, they can email it that way. So there's all kinds of methods for employees to send documentation to us. We try to make it as easy as possible. A lot of times what happens is an employee will actually give us a call and we have a toll-free line that's open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time. I have to make sure I change my times there, Monday through Friday, and they can call in and ask for help. I got this packet of information. I don't quite understand what I need to do. Can you help me walk through this? We'll be glad to do that. How do I get that to you? I don't have a fax machine. I don't really want to go to the post office, blah, blah, blah. Do you have a cell phone? Do you have a smartphone? Yes. Can you take a picture of that and email it directly to me? I'll get it within seconds, and I can help you walk through that. So again, anything we can do to make the process easier, and including the envelope, which has not been kind of the norm of late. Most people are not doing that, but we were asked to do that. And I think that's, if your employees are used to doing it that way, that's fantastic. So we'll include that in the process. We send that packet out. We give them 6 weeks to complete the documentation. Through that 6 weeks, we also send out reminders. We'll do a reminder postcard for anybody that hasn't completed the process. It says, hey, by the way, don't forget. It gives our toll-free number on there again. We're trying to drive them back to giving us a call if they have a question. And then we send a second reminder out in the 5th week. And then at the end of 6 weeks, we send out what we call an appeal letter. It's not really an appeal. It's really just an opportunity for us to say, you have not completed the process yet. Please give us a call or submit final documentation, and we're going to give you a few more weeks to do that. So the total timeline really is 6 weeks of verification and 4 weeks of that grace period or appeal period at the back end. And so if you think about it, the communication process is going to be an announcement letter and preceded by the pre-announcement letter, 2 reminders, a appeal letter, 5, and then a final determination letter on the back end, 6, for anybody that didn't actually complete the process. If they come back and say, I didn't know this was happening, then there's really a real problem there. Because the bottom line is, we send this out first-class mail. If it comes back to us, we're tracking that. We're going to be communicating that back to your team and saying, hey, these are the ones that we have a packet that came back to. Can you help us communicate with them? And that can be us sending out another packet to a new address, sending the packet directly to their manager, their supervisor. We can email it directly to the supervisor. We can email it directly to the employee. So, or we can have them call in, we can walk them into the online system, and they can do it online. So we're here to work with your employees to make sure that this gets completed. We have about a 97 to 98% response rate, and in our business, the 2 to 3% that don't respond are the ones that are the bad actors, the ones that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they go, oh, well, Bob's not really my spouse, so I'm just going to ignore this and it'll go away, or they'll just drop Bob when they get ready. So we expect to have some people not respond, but we're pretty high up in the percentages there. So any questions about the process itself? Yes, ma'am.
How do you dispose of, once the process is finished, you've collected all this data on our employees, how do you dispose of that sensitive information?
If it's sent in to us, good question. If they sent hard copy documentation to us, we scan that into our electronic system, and then the paper is destroyed. At the end of the project, we've been asked to then submit back copies of the documentation that we have electronically via a secured FTP site, which we can do, and it'll stay on our system until you tell us to delete it. And it's electronically kept. Again, we're a benefits enrollment company, so we have, our systems are top-notch security as far as anything we have, because we have all that information on every employee we work with. So electronically, we can keep it or delete it however you wish. If you decide you want to do this later on, it might be the best move to leave it there, because when you come back to redo it, some of the system is already activated and ready to go, but we can turn it off as well.
We're, as a benefits administration company, we have literally millions of people in our system. We've never had a breach. In 20 years, SmartBin, that Hodges Mace now owns, has actually been, was in the forefront of the benefits administration world, and has been around since 1998, even before the web, right? They're going in and putting it right on people's computers. They'd come in and do a LAN, WAN, whatever that means, installation. And we've never had a breach. We've got people that, our security people work the Pentagon, that level. We're SOC 1, SOC 2 certified, all the, I don't know what those acronyms mean, honestly, but I know we've never had a breach and the data's secured, so.
I know we do have the SOC audit every year.
We do.
And it's,
And we're very sensitive about, sharing it internally without being on secure email. It's
a big no-no.
It's a big no-no. So yeah, your data's in good hands. So, sorry about that.
You said that a person could just email you one of their documents, so I was just, curious about how you would follow that particular document they emailed you privately to keep it secure, that kind of thing.
They email it directly into the system itself. Our system is set up so that if they use the toll-free fax, for instance, they're assigned a reference number. Each packet that goes out has a reference number. We even give them a fax cover sheet with that reference number embossed on it, is barcoded. So when that comes in, our system reads the barcode, says, oh, that belongs to Jane Smith, and it deposits it in Jane Smith's file. Again, all secured from that perspective. Yes, ma'am. It is. We own the system. In fact, I actually worked with a company called Continuous Health that we built this system, and that was what I came on board to do 9 years ago. And then I moved over to Hodges Mace, and then we turned around and purchased Continuous Health as part of our family of companies now. So we built it internally. We built it specifically to do this process. A lot of the systems out there of our competitors were actually claims audit systems that were adapted to do dependent audit systems. We actually started with the thought we're going to build a system that does dependent audit only, and that's all it's used for.
I've got a couple of questions. You were talking about the information going directly to Jane Smith's file. I noticed on here you've got mail, fax, web portal, and voice. So is the fax line totally dedicated to Rutherford County's group, or the
Yes.
telephone number? So when my people call somebody or fax somebody,
We know it's you.
it is strictly to someone dealing only at that time with Rutherford County, in that when my information gets in there, if she's so busy, it gets stick in a pile. The pile is still Rutherford County pile. She doesn't have 4 or 5 different county piles that this one lady or man happens to be looking at the time. So does all of our information go to, like, I'm just going to say one person. I know that's impossible, but one person or group of people that is Rutherford County only for the duration of this time? And then the next thing, with all of these paperwork that you're going to send out, what's it going to look like? Is it going to show me something that it has to do with Rutherford County? Because
Yes.
last weekend I got a piece in an envelope, looked like junk, until one of the men come in and said, "What is this?" I said, I don't know if I got mine. And I looked, and not until we opened it did it say Rutherford County.
Question.
At my house, it would have been thrown away because it looked like junk mail trying to sell me something. So we just need to make sure, in my opinion, just for my simple mind, I need something to flag it when it comes in the mailbox. This is important to me because it's my office or my employer sending it to.
That's a great question. Our envelopes, when we send information out, will say Rutherford County. It'll have your logo on it. It has our return address on it just because we didn't track if it's a bad address. But yes, everything that goes out will say Rutherford County. Even the reminder cards, which is basically a postcard, it'll still say Rutherford County on that. That's correct.
So Mary, to elaborate a little bit, everything's barcoded. All the documents are barcoded. So even if you're going to fax something in, there is a specific fax cover sheet that has to be used, and it will be barcoded specifically for Mary Hickerson at Rutherford County. So when it goes in, because it's a technology-based company, when it goes through, it reads that barcode and automatically puts it in queue for Rutherford County. Now, that person may work multiple accounts. I don't know that they're dedicated.
They are dedicated to fax number, so that's only for Rutherford County, and the toll-free number that you call in is only for Rutherford County. So when our call center individuals may work multiple accounts, but when that phone rings, it says Rutherford County on it, they know who they're talking to before you even answer the phone.
We kind of understand this stuff a little bit from talking and dealing with it in here, But everybody outside, I mean, they come into my office and they're like, I don't understand any of this stuff. So we, and I'm one of them, if we can make it simple, that we can understand it, don't overload us with a whole lot because we're going to zone out.
We make it as simple as possible, and in reality, I think our call center, the folks that we hire for the call center to start with, are people that just really have that, I hate to say this, but that Chick-fil-A mentality, the very friendly service. You can see them smiling through the telephone. That's the kind of people that we hire for this environment. They are here to really hold someone's hand and walk them through the process. They're not here to go, just send the documents in. That would be a big mistake. So it's very important to us.
That's a huge part of it. I mean, just being able to tell them, hey, call and talk to a human being. For me, that's a huge thing, right? I mean, I hate the work from home policy, right? Because I can't walk upstairs and talk to somebody they're not there on Tuesday, Yeah. So, but being able to communicate directly with someone that's going to give you an answer is a big part.
And I'm very happy, it'll be in all the information, but I'm very happy in case you have a spouse, an employee that doesn't have a spouse, we can certainly provide the toll-free number, the fax information, and contact information for all of the supervisory team. So if somebody comes to you and goes, I don't know how to do this, they'll have the number handy. So again, any way we can broadcast that toll-free number out and the time that somebody's available, 7 to 7, Monday through Friday, whatever will help you guys, we'd be glad to do that.
When we discussed the prepaid stamped envelope, we, as part of that discussion, gave him an overview of our population to make sure that they understood that, we need to work at various levels and accommodations of our staff, and that's one of the, even though they don't customarily do the envelopes, I know that there is a significant portion of our population that wants those envelopes because they will mail their documents in.
This may be from Ms. Street. Who decided that the number of dependents, I guess, that you're going to audit is 1,568?
It's through our enrollment data that we have.
That's how many spouses or employees that have
Spouses on the plan today.
I mean, out of all these employees we've got, only 1,568 of them have spouses
on the plan.
On the plan, okay, just,
Good question.
that's pretty good. Out of
1,000
6,000 so-called employees, only 1,568 have people on the plan, spouses. All right, thank you. So that narrows the number of folks you've got to deal with here.
Right, as of
substantially.
2016, it was much higher prior to that.
And that's another, the cause of that effect is the fact that y'all done a good job too with managing your spousal carve-out, so if an employee has coverage elsewhere.
All right, so I understand now that's just the spouses, but there are more children than that on this plan probably. What about any review of that?
So we didn't bid out the dependent, which is the children. And the reason being that we manage that internally. We have an individual it's Melissa Career, who participated in these interviews. That's one of her primary responsibilities. So anytime that there's a dependent added to the insurance, we collect all the necessary documentation within our office, and we validate that is an eligible child to be on the insurance. Under the federal laws, they can stay on until age 26 as long as they are an eligible child. And then for vision and dental, we will each semester validate their school status if they're over age 19. So that's the reason why it wasn't included as part of this audit.
Okay, well, that's good, thank you.
Y'all do a great job internally with probably half of what we normally would do for a project like this.
All right, other questions of Mr. Helton or Mr. White?
I got one.
Arlen.
What timeline are we looking at starting this?
That's really up to your team as to when they want to start it. We can get it moving within about a 4-week period of time. So when they tell us, send out the announcement letter, we'd like to do that maybe 2 weeks before. We need about a 4-week period to set it up. So we're ready to go as soon as.
Right.
Exact dates, I think.
Yeah, so we had talked about that during the interview process, and they had recommended that we started it towards the end of the year. So it gives us October, which was one of my announcements under other business, open enrollment is October the 16th through the 30th at noon, and then we'll be doing file cleanup after that. So we would be able to get a file out to them probably the last of November, so that they could then start, the preparation process for the first mailing, and then the documents would be due back in during the month of January. We want to make sure that we get the teachers back into the classroom and they're back in their normal functionality, what they do day to day, and then we would wrap it up somewhere around the end of January.
And we don't recommend trying to send out the announcement packets the last 2 weeks of December, just because, as you know, your mailbox is full of junk mail for Christmas and things like that. So we would try to avoid that. If we can't,
Right.
we'd like to get the announcement packet out by maybe around the 10th of December, or tell you to hold off until the 1st of January, because it's
Right, and that's what
our
we had
fear.
talked about, to get the file in by the end of November so that we can produce those packets and get them out 1st of December, so.
We can have the entire system set up prior to that. We can do that in October, November, and then as soon as the file comes to us, make a decision on that trigger date and have everything go out.
I was just thinking if somebody was in the position that was using it incorrectly during open enrollment, they could
change it
beforehand, before they get stuck in January, and then whatever the process is of getting them off, and then they can't, most I think companies don't allow you to add your insurance in the middle of the year.
That's kind of a sticky one, because if you have loss of coverage, then you have access to coverage. So the other employer really would have to make that decision whether they consider that to be loss of coverage, and then an open window on that side.
Qualifying event.
Correct.
But they do have a soft landing process, if you want to talk about that a little bit, Mark.
Yeah. Our soft landing process basically is a method. When we do a normal audit, someone says, well, by the way, that really isn't my child, that's my sister's kid, and I've been taking care of them. Okay, they've got to be coming off the plan. Can you help me find coverage for them? When we have a system, it's free of charge, and we don't make anything on the deal. It's strictly our assistance in helping that employee go online and figure out how to find coverage on the open market. So it's they set up an appointment. We do a one-on-one conversation with them on the phone, get them on a computer, help them log in, and go find coverage for that individual. So if it came down to they didn't have the open enrollment period, they've got that to fall back on. They can contact us, and we can help them find coverage.
Other questions about the process?
Okay, no other questions. What we need to decide if you guys will recommend Hodges Mace to do this spouses dependent audit and take this back to the purchasing committee for their final approval, and then on to the commission. That's what this is, what this committee will start that process on. So what's the wishes of the committee?
Motion to approve.
And a second? All right, thank you. Further discussion? Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Anyone, all of you in favor of that, then please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen. All right, is there any other business anyone wishes to bring before the committee? Ms. Street, does that cover everything?
That's it. The only thing I had was open enrollment, and we've already mentioned that. Packets will go out in the mail tomorrow, actually, so that they can land in the homes during fall break, because we know that all of our teachers and Board of Ed employees don't have anything to do but read open enrollment materials during fall break, so we make sure we drop them in the mail then. So save the date postcards have already gone out, so that will start on the 16th.
And what's our next assignment, or what are we going to be looking at and when?
So next month is going to be just a basic meeting month where we'll discover standard reports. We'll update you on the Know Your Numbers campaign as we understand it at that point, and give you an update about open enrollment. And that meeting is on November the 17th. We do not meet in October due to open enrollment.
So we don't meet in October, so the next meeting may be when?
November the 17th.
November. Okay. Any other questions or discussion? If not, then we are adjourned. Thank you.